Hey, what's up? My name is Tyler Koenig, and today I'm going to talk about how to tell your company's story. As an entrepreneur, as a startup, this is kind of a crucial part in the foundation of your business, especially as you're getting started out and as you're kind of attracting the right people to your company. So, to start things off on a high note, your audience doesn't actually care about your story, right? When we're thinking about building our business and we're thinking about how to tell our story, a lot of times we get caught up in our perspective of why it's important, right? We talk about how we were inspired to start it, what are the life experiences that led us here. But the reality is that our customers or our potential customers, they don't care about our story, at least from that perspective, but they do care about their own, right? So everything that we're going to talk about here today is how to frame your company story within the context of your customer or your potential customer story. Because that, no matter what they say, no matter how much they might say that they're interested in what you've got going on, they're really self-interested and they only want to know how it can help them. So we're going to talk about how to make this idea of your customer story and that they're the main character in their story, how to make that work in your favor when we're telling your company's story through your website, through your marketing materials, and as you start to attract the right people to hopefully become long-term customers for your company. So quick agenda today, we're going to talk about three things. So we're going to talk about positioning, right? We're going to talk about how to frame kind of your story within this idea of your business. And then we're going to talk about how to set up a website, right? Because this website is going to be the home base for everything that you do, especially starting off. So it's really important to kind of create that foundation and put it together in a way that makes sense and that's conducive to your customers taking action. And then third, we're going to talk about how to break down hesitations, right? So inevitably there will be hesitations for people that see your company, they think it might be a good idea, but they're still not sure. So we're going to talk about some things that you can use in your content and in your copy to break some of those things down to make it easier for them to take action. Okay? So really quickly, as I said, my name is Tyler Koenig. So I am a content strategist and a copywriter. So as a conversion copywriter, I've been working for about 7 years, worked with a ton of different companies, basically to tell their story persuasively, to drive action, and to really set the foundation for what companies will be doing over the next 5-10 years of their life. So right now, my big kind of role is with Capital G. Capital G is Alphabet's growth fund. So we invest in companies like Lyft and Airbnb, companies that are kind of pre-IPO. So they've passed the early seed stage. They've already established themselves in the market, and now they're getting ready to go public. So I'm the content lead for them, helping tell the stories of our portfolio companies and making sure that everything is cohesive within the idea of a brand story. As a copywriter, I've worked with kind of some really cool names, copy hackers. If you guys are familiar with copywriting or kind of done your own research, I've worked with Copy Hackers, Copywriter Club, worked with some agencies like Client Boost and Agora, which is direct response. So you might have a parent or a grandparent that gets all those email newsletters where they talk about, protecting their wealth and things like that. That's where I learned my craft and that's where I started, but it kind of helped frame everything. So that's me. If you want to learn more about me later after this presentation, you can go to my website. But let's just jump right in. So the first thing that I really love talking about and kind of the focus of a lot of my work is this idea of human behavior and how people make decisions, right? When we talk about building your company's story, right, we're not just creating a story just to create a story. We're doing it to change the behaviors of the people that come into contact with our website or with our brand, right? So this is a model by BJ Fogg. He is a behavioral scientist at Stanford. And so this basically shows that a behavior change, right? So B equals behavior change. This won't get too technical, I swear. I'm going to keep it high level. But behavior change only happens when motivation and ability and a trigger come together at the same moment, right? So if you look at the graph, if there is a high motivation, but it's hard to do, it's still going to be a success, right? Because that motivation is so high that even if it's really hard to do, that person really wants it to happen. So it falls under that curve, so it falls over that curve and it's going to be a success. But if motivation is not high enough and it's really hard to do, as you can see under that curve, that's where the triggers fail, right? And on the other side, if something's really, really easy to do and there's not that much motivation, but it's super easy, then most likely the trigger will succeed. But if the motivation is super high and it's easy to do, then for sure the trigger will succeed, right? And when we say trigger, what do we mean? So we're basically talking about taking action, right? This could be clicking a link on your website. This could be clicking the Contact Us button on your website. Whatever that trigger is, that action that moves them forward in the process, in that relationship with your company, right? So this is kind of how, I like to think about copywriting and content, right? It's not just about the words. It's really about changing the behavior of the person that you're trying to influence, right? Or this potential customer that you're trying to bring on into your company, okay? So that's just kind of a good way to think about how you're positioning yourself, how you're positioning your copy, how you're positioning your website and your brand, right? You really want to make it a behavioral change by having a good balance of motivation, ability, and then a trigger, right? So first thing, the first kind of piece of our agenda is how to position your company. So this section's a little bit, not theoretical, but it's really kind of how to frame the rest of what we're going to talk about as far as your website, as far as breaking down hesitations. This is really important as you move forward and as you kind of build your business and as you build your brand, is thinking about the perspective that you are coming from, right? How to position yourself, right? Inevitably, most likely there is going to be a lot of competition within the market that you are entering, right? So it's up to you to position yourself in a way that makes you stand out, and not just as a shiny brand and not just as something that is new and fresh, which is nice, but really as a way to stand out as someone that offers something different. Offers not just a product or a solution, but offers guidance, okay? So what you offer and why you're different is simply not enough, right? It's 2021. There are endless options, endless people out there kind of innovating, and there's a lot of solutions out there, right? So it's up to you to kind of go beyond what just that product is or what that service is and offer this new level of guidance, okay? So that guidance is going to be key. And that's kind of how we're going to frame this, right? So one of my favorite books, and kind of throughout this, we're going to talk about some resources that I'll recommend for you to read and kind of go through as you build your business. But one of my favorite books that really had an impression on me, and I think I picked this up maybe halfway through my copywriting career, was Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. Now, the bulk of this book is based around the hero's journey. So I don't know, maybe you've heard about the hero's journey. Donald Miller did not come up with the hero's journey. He just packages it really well. But the idea is that your customer is the hero, right? You are not the hero of your brand's or your company's story. Your customer is, right? So when you think about it like that, and you think about the perspective of, I'm not the actual hero, I'm just the person helping the hero get to the end of their journey, then your content and how you frame everything starts to change, right? So you're not the hero. You're not Luke Skywalker. You're Obi-Wan, right? You are not Mad Max, as cool as that would be. You are Furiosa, right? You are the person that the hero meets at some point in their journey, and then you help them get to the end, right? Of course, within the context of business and your company and your startup, that means getting to a point where they have a solution that helps solve whatever problem it is that you're helping them solve, right? So just keep that in the back of your head, is that you are not the hero, you are the guide in your customer's journey, all right? So be a guide, not a commodity. And when I say not a commodity, this means do not position yourself as just a product or just a service, because there are hundreds of those. There's unlimited options of products and services that people can point to. But when you say, look, I'm not just a product, I'm a guide that's going to help you get to where you want to go, then you start to set yourself apart, and then you have this different level of value that you can offer to your potential customers, okay? So again, this section was really kind of framing and reference, but this is super, super important. When I learned this and started applying it to my clients, it just helped the copy and the content flow and the story kind of come together in a way that just made more sense, right? It wasn't talking about what I think is important about my company, what I think is cool about my story. It's about what will help the customer, right, the hero, actually move forward, right? And there's obviously elements of my story and my company's story that I can add and that I should add to move that forward, but it's just keeping that customer first and being more than a product or a service, all right? So with that in mind, now let's talk about your website, right? So your website is going to be the base, the foundation of everything that you do. It's going to be the home, right? When you tell people about your company, when you tell people, hey, I've got this awesome startup, I think you'd really be interested, they're going to be pointed to your website. So it's really important that not that you just have a pretty website, that it's very usable, which is obviously key, but it's also how you actually position the journey within the website, right? Because as the entrepreneur, it's up to you to kind of point them where to go and how to get there. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to position that. So your website's number one priority, right? A lot of people might think that the priority is to explain what your business does, is to explain why you're different, is to say how different and awesome and unique you are, to show off what you're doing, right? That's not the point. Okay, that's not the point of your website. Your website's number one priority is to build trust. Straight up, that's it. Build trust. Building trust is the kind of wall that your customer has to scale to really get in the mindset of wanting to do business with you. Right? It's easy to say, here's what I do, here's how we do it, here's why it'll help. But if there's no trust, then none of that stuff will matter, right? So the number one priority for your company's website, as an entrepreneur, as a starting entrepreneur, and as someone with a company with years of experience, it's to build trust, all right? And so when I say build trust, I don't just mean someone that will be like, hey, good job, you're doing awesome, or someone that will just walk next to your customer and saying, look, we're partners. When I say build trust, I mean someone that will throw rocks at your customer's enemy with them. So you're teaming up. Someone that your customer trusts, it means that you're teaming up with them to fight the enemy, right? And that enemy might be it might be a person, it might be a problem, it might be a situation, it might be anything. But the point is that you are saying, look, I'm with you in this battle, and I'm going to throw rocks. We're going to throw rocks at your enemy, and we're going to get you past whatever hurdle is stopping you, right? So that's kind of the mindset. Be the person that was willing to throw rocks at your enemy, at your customer's enemy with them, right? You're not just there to handhold. You're not just there to say nice things about them, right? You're actually here to make a difference and fight their enemy with them, right? So that's the level of trust you want to get to. So this is kind of just a point of reference, a data point to prove kind of how trust is so important. So this is a screenshot of Google Analytics for a pretty big client of mine. And this is kind of a snapshot of how I would say like 98% of website flow and traffic goes. So as you can see, the number one page, of course, is the home page. But the number 2 and number 3 pages, depending on how your website is set up, is about. As soon as someone lands on your homepage and they see, okay, this is the right, I'm in the right place, the first thing they do, they don't go to services, they don't see how it works, they want to see about the company, or who are the people behind this, right? And that lends to the idea of trust, right? As soon as someone sees the website, they want to know who's behind it. They want to know more about it. So when it comes to prioritizing the website, prioritizing the creation of your website, homepage, obviously crucial. That's going to be the kind of the base. But the second most important page is going to be your about page, right? It's going to be the page that explains who you are, why the customer should care, right? After that, then they get into the services, then they get into how it works, then they get into who you've worked with, right? Those are all things that should be secondary. But first and foremost, after your homepage, you have to talk about who you are and why you matter in the context of your customer story. All right, so now we're going to talk about, kind of a framework that you can use for those 2 most important pages, for the home page and then for the about page. So homepage, As you're writing your homepage, there's so many references that you can use. I would, just as a general kind of piece of advice, I would really say go look at what other startups are doing. And I know there's this kind of feeling of you want to be unique and you want to have your own thing, which of course you should. But you should also not be afraid to get inspiration from what other successful companies are doing. Best way to do that is go to AngelList. So if you know about AngelList, it's kind of a startup hub for companies that are looking to hire or looking for funding, things like that. But the website is angel.co, and you can browse all of the companies that are actively looking for jobs, actively looking to hire people, actively looking to expand their team. And so you can kind of just in your head say, okay, since these are the companies, these are the startups that are active, maybe these are ones that are good to reference. So go to angel.co, look at other websites so you can get inspiration for yours. Anyways, homepage. So the homepage, so now we're talking about the copy and the content, right? I'm not going to really talk about the design so much and the usability because that's kind of a separate thing, but obviously that's important, but you should take advantage of, your design chops or whoever is on your team. But as far as the content copy goes, the best framework that I will say to use is PAS. All right, so PAS stands for Problem, Agitation, and Solution. A very simple formula, and it is one of the best copywriting formulas that I've come across because of its simplicity, right? Problem, agitation, solution. When we talk about the problem, that's simply saying right away to the person landing on your website, this is the problem that we are solving for, right? Very simple, very straight up, right? Agitation is talking about why that problem has, why it should be prioritized, why it is such a big deal, why they need to think about solving it, right? And then the solution, most of the times you think about solution being, hey, my service is the solution, right? But in the context of the homepage, I want you to think about solution as get to know the team or get to know more about the company, right? As I said before, the most important thing after your homepage is that someone can build that trust by learning about the company, by learning about the team. So within the context of a homepage, and remember, this is like the minimal, I know we have this term MVP, minimal viable product. This is like minimum viable homepage. So if you want a homepage that just needs to get it done, as far as moving your people into your website, this is what you should do. But you have the problem, I'm going to show you an example in a second, but you have the problem, explain what it is and what you do and why it's important. Agitation, why it's such a big deal, why the person needs to prioritize this in their life, why they need to pay attention. And the solution is, if that makes sense to you, come learn more about what we're doing, okay? So here's an example. So this is Pinata. And again, the idea is that, so you can, there's no shame or there's no it's not bad to build out a whole homepage that explains everything that you do. Obviously, if it has good UX and all of that good stuff, fine. But again, I'm talking about the minimum things that you need for your homepage, right? So, problem, isn't it time to rethink rent? Okay, so this obviously puts this idea front and center in your customer's head. Obviously, it's touching on the experiences that you've had previously by paying rent, all the things that make it kind of a pain, right? You have to send in a check, you can't use your phone to do it. It's just kind of like an archaic way of paying rent. So Pinata, they're kind of putting that problem at the forefront, right? And so then they need to agitate that problem. So it's like, okay, the problem is that rent needs a refresh, right? How we pay rent needs a refresh. The agitation is that you don't really have any ways to benefit, especially in 2021 where everything kind of has reward points and where everything has you get airline miles for buying plane tickets. Why don't you get any rewards for paying rent? And so that's the agitation, and they kind of just throw that in there. So it helps renters earn rewards and save on everyday expenses for a sweeter rental experience, right? So this is the problem, and they agitate it by giving some context as far as what you can expect and what you should be, excited about when it comes to this solution. And here the solution is to download the app. But in the context of building trust for you and your website, unless this is an okay way, I think, of setting up your homepage if you have an app. But for me, what I think would be much more effective is saying the solution being, click here to learn more about us, right? Click here to learn more about Pinata. Learn more about why we are helping you rethink rent, right? So the problem, rent sucks. Agitation, you could be earning reward points, but you're not. Solution, learn more about us. So that's it's a very simplistic kind of formula for your homepage. But again, that's really all you need to get your potential customer into your website. The goal of your homepage isn't to explain everything that you do, it's to get them further into your website. As they make that commitment to click buttons to get further into your website, that makes a subconscious commitment for them to say that, okay, I'm slowly building trust, I'm getting to know these people more. And then later, after you have explained who you are and the services that you provide, then you give them the opportunity to take action by downloading the app, contacting you, etc. Okay, so that's the homepage, PAS. I think that's probably my favorite simple copywriting formula. But now we're going to talk about your about page and your services. So IDC, it does not stand for I don't care. It is actually a piece of a larger formula that I teach. So AIDCA is kind of the full copywriting formula that I actually teach through my persuasive copywriting courses and things like that. But IDC, it takes the context of I'm already in your website, I've seen your homepage, and now I just need to learn more. So IDC stands for interest, desire, and conviction, right? So interest is basically, you could think of interest as empathy, right? Empathy as in, here's what you've got going on. I know it's a problem. This is why it's a hassle. And let me help you prioritize it, right? Desire talks about introducing the solution. Before I keep going, I want to say every copywriting formula that you come across, they're basically the same. As far as they have the same core, right? They have the same foundation. They have kind of the same outcomes. But how they're framed just kind of helps, in different situations. So that's why for this one I like IDC. But so interest is like the same thing as when we were thinking about PAS. This is kind of like problem and agitation put together. So interest is, here's what you've got going on. Here's why it's a big deal in your life. Here's why you need to prioritize it. Here's what happens if you don't prioritize it, right? So that's the interest. Desire is when you're introducing the idea of a solution. Here's what it could be. Here's your problem. Here's your interest. Here's desire. Here's what it could be. Here's what happens if you solve this problem. Here's how great your life would be if this wasn't an issue for you, right? So you're painting this picture of what it's like to have that problem solved. And then conviction is saying, look, I really believe that you need to solve this problem, right? Conviction is just saying, look, you really need to have this solved in your life. And this could be within the copy, or there's different ways. You could use testimonials, you could use data. But the point of conviction is saying, like, look, what I just said before about the solution, I really believe it. You should believe it. Here's why it is a huge deal. You need to prioritize this and take action, okay? So let me show you a couple of examples. Our mission is to help communicate better and be more productive. So assuming that they've already gone through the homepage and now that they're on the About page, now we're kind of building this interest as far as what is the problem and why it's agitated, right? So communicate better and be more productive. And then they talk about, if you read each of these little paragraphs, it really talks about the problem and why it is such an important thing in your life, right? Not my life as the company owner or the founder. It doesn't matter about what's going on in my life. It matters about why it is a problem in your customer's life, right? So remember to keep that framing of you are the guide that has gone through it, so you're here to help the customer. But you really need to agitate, or you really need to have that empathy and explain explicitly why you have this, why this problem is a problem and why it needs to be solved, right? So I like this. They do a really good job here of kind of explaining in three pillars, what that problem is, why it's a big deal, and then they start talking about the solution, right? And when we say solution, we're thinking IDC. This is desire, right? So the desire isn't saying, here's the solution, take action. It's saying, here's what life would be like with a solution. Here's what life would be like if your problems were solved, right? So it helps you start to paint the picture of, maybe that wouldn't be bad. That would be kind of interesting if I could have that problem solved, right? It's not throwing the click here, buy now button in your face. Instead, it's starting to paint that picture and getting them in that trusting feeling mode of, yeah, that would be nice. It would be nice if someone could help me do that, all right? And then conviction is just basically reiteration, right? That's something, if conviction didn't really make sense for you, conviction, just think of it as reiterating the interest and the desire in a different way, okay? I removed this headline because you don't really need a headline. This would be like the attention grabber, but for many cases, if it's your about page or your service page, you really just don't need that. So I wanted to focus on kind of talking about the interest, the desire, conviction. You can, of course, on your about page or your services page, have this attention grabber, but the more important part is that empathy, talking about what a solution might look like, and then reiterating it with conviction. So this is another example I wanted to share. This is a company called I believe they're called My Billy. They're kind of like the Dollar Shave Club for women. It's like women shaving products, basically. But this is an example again. So interest is empathy, right? It started with the razor, changed everything. We noticed that women were overpaying for razors and shamed for having body hair. Okay, so that's the interest, right? That's the empathy. Here's the problem. Here's what was happening. Here's why you, the customer, should care. Because if that resonates with you, then you're reading this like, oh man, yeah, they get me, right? And as soon as they have that feeling, then that little trust meter starts to build. So we did away with the pink tax and put body hair on the big screen. Now meet our sparkling clean collection of better beauty basics for your medicine cabinet. So now they're painting that picture of, yeah, it would be kind of nice if my medicine cabinet had better, it better served me. It had more things that actually helped me, more things that, helped me stop overpaying, more things that actually helped me feel good about myself, right? So that's the desire, right? Starting to paint that picture of what it could be. And then conviction, right? Conviction is reiterating why it's so good, why you should care. Powered by ingredients that do no harm, work super hard, and take the guesswork out of clean, right? So it has those three elements. And again, this is part of a larger page, but all you really need for your about page and your services page is those three elements, right? Interest, desire, and conviction. All right, so that's kind of how, when you're setting up your website, remember just to think about the home page and the about page as those two top priorities, and think about how you can kind of use those two formulas, PAS and IDC, to explain your company story within the context of why your customer needs you, right? Why you as the guide are entering your customer's journey at this specific point, right? Don't talk about yourself just to talk about yourself. Don't talk about, why one day you were walking down the street and you had this dose of inspiration and all of a sudden you decided that I want to change the world. That doesn't matter. What matters is how your experience or whatever you've got going on can help the person reading this, all right? Super important. Okay, so after you've kind of decided, how to frame the about page, how to frame your home page, then it's about breaking down hesitations. Now, this is kind of, these are tips that you can kind of use overall with your messaging, definitely on your website, but really overall with your copywriting. As depending on your experience with copywriting and with marketing, these are going to be things that you're going to come across at every stage of your business, right? Every stage of your website, your emails, your ads, your campaigns, everything, right? Because as consumers in a digital age, we're very weary about trusting new people, right? So to build that connection, you're going to have to break down some of those hesitations that are getting in the way of your potential customer actually taking action. So first thing to do is address emotional doubts, not just logic, right? Don't try to logic your way out of everything. Don't try to logic your website. The key points of like the logistics and the tactics and the things like that, the logic points of why it makes sense, it can make all the sense in the world. But if there's still like this emotional feeling that is stopping them from taking action, or that is stopping them from moving forward, then they're not going to move forward, right? So within your copy, within your homepage, within your marketing, just remember to consider what's going on in your potential customer's life emotionally, not just logically, right? So think about the things that could be holding them back. It could be fear. It could be a past experience that jaded them. It could be a positive emotion. It could be aspiration. It could be this idea of wanting to prove somebody wrong, right? These are emotional, emotional elements that really play an important part in that decision-making process, right? Instead of just the logic and the numbers, thinking about the emotion that's going on behind it. All right, so here's an example. This is a Facebook ad, but confidence, right? So the emotion that he really uses here is confidence. Imagine if every time you went live, you were 100% confident on camera, your message directly connects with your audience, et cetera, right? So this paints the picture. Again, this is kind of like the desire when we're thinking of the IDC. This is kind of like the desire portion where he's painting the picture of what it could be like. But he's using emotion, right? He's not saying logically. He's not saying if every time you went like he's not saying he's not talking about the numbers behind the business. He's not talking about why it makes sense. He's saying this is how you're going to feel. These are the emotions that you're going to go through as you take on the solution, right? So through your website, through all of your marketing, just think, the logic, it can be important as a baseline just to get like those key things out there. But thinking about your customer as far as what emotions are going through their head, what are those feelings that they're not really sharing with the world, those kind of internal problems that are slowing them down, and address those. Because as the guide, if you can address those internal problems that no one's really, psyched to share, like no one's super excited to say like, hey, I have no confidence. Like no one's going to say that. But if you as the guide can address that and just know that that's an issue for them, then that level of trust is just going to skyrocket and it's going to make everything else a lot easier. Okay, so number 2, set the rules of engagement. This is really crucial for your website. And when I say set the rules of engagement, it means explain clearly what you expect from your customer to do, or explain what will happen once they take an action. All right? Once you click here, you're going to be led to a page that explains how the service works. Once you click contact us, you will get a form that will let you explain what's going on, and we'll get back to you in 24 hours, right? Just be very, very clear of what the expectations are. Be clear of what will happen at each stage for your reader when they take action. Do not have these fancy call to actions that are clever and then just say something, that might be on brand, but that doesn't actually say what's going to happen. This is like the number one mistake that I see in websites is that, they try to be very clever and they try to be on brand with their call to actions or like their sections that move them forward, but they don't help, right? Clarity over cleverness every time. Make it clear, especially when it comes to contacting you and kind of, taking a step into becoming a customer. Make it very, very clear what happens at each stage so that there's no surprises. If you can remove that surprise element, then they're going to have more trust and they're going to just feel better and more confident to take that action with you. Okay? Third, make a promise. Simply that. Make a promise at any point. On your homepage, on your about page, on your service page, we promise to make sure that you have everything you need to blah, 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 blah. There is like this kind of goes back into the behavioral science part, but humans are just, once we hear someone make a promise, and the crazy thing is it can literally just be a line that says we promise to, et cetera, et cetera. There's something that just kind of breaks down in our mind that's like, okay, I feel better now. I can trust this person. So don't make a ridiculous promise that you can't keep, but just kind of use this promise language to create that connection, and to build that trust. Um, it's a go-to move, I think, for any entrepreneur and any startup, is to just make that promise that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. As soon as someone sees that, there's just that level of trust. It just goes up, right? Because then it makes it feel like it's more of a human person-to-person connection rather than just this kind of corporate veil that stands there. Okay, so make a promise. Leave your reader with the ultimate decision. So marketing, the thing about marketing that I'm sure you've kind of realized and understood as a consumer in this world is that we hate being marketed to. We like buying stuff, we like solving our problems, but we don't like being marketed to or told, more accurately, we don't like being told what to do. So within your website, within your emails, within your ads, leave your reader with the ultimate decision, right? Because when you do this, it says, look, I've got this, here's what I've got going on. This is how it will help you. I'm not going to force you to do it, because at the end of the day, it's your life. You can do whatever you want. But if you want to do it, take action, right? And so that's different from saying, take action now or else you will never be happy, right? You know what I mean? It's very less direct, kind of indirect, saying like, it's almost like reverse psychology, like when you have, if you have a child or a baby brother or something, where it's like you can come if you want, like I'm not going to force you to come, and then they feel like they really want to, right? So it kind of gives them that power. It empowers them to feel like they're in control. One of the biggest hesitations and one of the biggest roadblocks that people have, that customers have on a website or with a new company, is that they don't have control, right? People hate feeling that they don't have control. So when you can give them a little bit of control, even within the small framing of your website or your campaign, it makes a difference. So here's an example from a sales page of one of my favorite copywriters. His name is Ramit Sethi. I would definitely look him up, Ramit Sethi. But you can see here, you have the proof that my material works. You've seen the results. If not now, then when? If not this course, is there anything that will change your mind? The decision is up to you. Okay, so it gives them that motivation and that push without pushing them directly and saying, buy this course now if you want to change your life. If you don't do this, then you suck, right? It's giving them that kind of, it's empowering them to have control over their own situation, which makes them more, number one, more trusting of you because you're not pushing and being annoying, but also it just helps them feel better about themselves. And when they feel better about themselves, and when you're the source of that, then they're more likely going to be take action with you. All right. So to wrap up, that was it, guys. To wrap up, just think about how your company helps tell your customer's story, right? Don't think about how you can tell your story. Because at the end of the day, no one cares about your story, at least not within that context. But they do, and they will care about your company's story if it can help them move forward in their own journey. All right, so thank you guys for checking this out. I hope it helps. If you have any questions, hit me up. There's my website. Learn more about kind of what's going on, and think about copywriting and content within this idea of your customer's journey, and you're going to benefit from it for a long, long time. Happy writing.